Roar. Alright folks, I'm going to show you how to rip Nintendo video game characters and turn them into papercrafts. So the first thing that you need is Dolphin, which is an emulator for the Wii and GameCube games. You need the x86 version. This is the 32-bit version, and the reason you need this is because that's what 3D Ripper uses. So you download Dolphin, you find yourself a ROM. Where you get that is your own business. 3D Ripper DX is then what will actually extract the 3D models from Dolphin. So the download, there's only the one, or just get the current version. And then you also need Papercraft Designer. This does cost money if you want to save it. If you don't want to save it, then by all means use it for free. But it does take some work and effort. You probably want to be able to save it. But you can play around with it, see if you like it, and then buy the code and put the code in, and then save it at that point if you really want to save your work. I don't know how much it costs. 38 bucks. So then the other thing you need is Blender, the 3D modeling tool. Now, full disclaimer, I am very, very not proficient at Blender. Everything that I know about it, I figured out through searching and just playing around. So I may do things the hard way and just don't know it. But I did do a lot of research trying to find things the easier way, so we'll see. If you have any tips or ideas for me to make it smoother of a transition, then by all means let me know. Maybe I'll update my video. Okay. So when you install 3D Ripper DX, there might be a few options of things to install. I installed none of them. Now you want to make it admin only. You want to open it as administrator. If you do not, it will not save your stuff. So make sure you do that. So today I'm going to show you how to make a gyroid from Animal Crossing. It's a pretty simple model with a little bit of editing required. So first pick your output directory for your 3DR and DDS. We'll just call it gyroid 2. Also capture your wavefront OBJ, and I don't believe you should use capture all textures. When I've used this, it will try to just grab all the textures that it ever finds. If you don't use it, then it will grab only what is in your captured frame. Both are kind of finicky, but I've had more luck with the capturing only the textures in your current frame. If for some reason the textures don't show up, or you get the wrong ones, just take another screenshot, try again, delete the folder, restart over. So I keep that off though. We're not going to do shaders, so don't worry about that. Make sure you set your 32-bit x86 Dolphin executable up here, and you will launch it from 3D Ripper. And started minimized for some reason. Okay, so I'm going to open up Animal Crossing with it. Now, before I do that, if you were paying attention, you would have seen that your capture button is F12 in the previous window, which is now missing, but be comforted that it's still there. It's still running. But you need to change your graphics. There we go. To 3D9, Direct 3D9. This may be deprecated, but it is the only version that will work with 3D Ripper DX. Then the other thing is in hotkey settings, in the save states, this was F12, which was your capture key. So change it to something else. I changed mine to F9. Okay, so now I can open Animal Crossing. And I happen to have a save state for exactly where I want to capture from. Went into some random, whatever that is house, and there are 3 gyroids there that I can capture. And it's a small little room, so it should have the least amount of ability to mess things up with textures and all that. So I hit F12, it takes a few seconds, and in theory it is done. So I can close that and close that and open up where I saved it to, which was Gyroid 2, and you can see all these DDS files which have all the textures. There is an MTL, which is the material file which references all these particular material files, and then there's the OBJ, which is a text document just like the MTL is a text document, referencing all of the points of the models, so the vertices. So now with this we will open up Blender, and right clicking is how you select things, so you can right click your square there and delete it if you want, but you'll want to import your OBJ file back to where we got it saved. So open the OBJ file, and that is not it. It is over here, the big huge thing. And you'll see it is skewed. It needs some work. If you zoom out with the scroll wheel, it starts to cut off funny. That's due to clipping. If you press the letter N, as in Nancy, you will open up this menu thing. You can go up to View, and you'll see the clipping. If you change this to a very large number, the clipping will stop happening. But this also has other side effects, so you'll want to go back and forth probably. 500 is often a good number, I find, but that's only once you're working on a particular model you want. So to start with, to find what you're working on, go to a high number, and you can see things more clearly. Now you can see how everything is slanted. If you use your mouse wheel and press the button, you can rotate around like this. So that's how I'm rotating around. If you hold the Shift key while using the mouse button, you can pan it around. Now another thing that comes in handy is the numpad on the right side of your keyboard. If you press the number 3, it goes to that. Control 3? Yeah, Control 3 will give you the other side. Then the 7, Control 7, 8 will kind of move it around, 9 will give you another view, and there is no Control 9, it appears. Oh, 9's just a toggle. But anyway, you can mess around with those. The reason those are important is because to unskew all this, you will want to use the exact same angle that you started with the first time. Otherwise it changes the skew values. And when I say skew, I'm actually referring to something called shearing. To me it's skewing. Maybe that's different. I don't know. I'm just using terminology I'm familiar with. Now also in this letter N menu that comes up, you can click Texture Solid, and that's what gives you all of your textures. So most of them turned out pretty good. My gyroids worked, so that's what I was mostly interested in. So I can click one. If I right click it again, it will select something else. So you gotta be careful what you're clicking on, because I have it highlighted now, and if I want to move it, I can right click and drag, but you'll see it grabbed something else now instead. So when I click, I have to make sure it's highlighting him before I start moving him. So I can move him out now and click. So you can see he is also very skewed. So to fix the skewing, I use the shearing tool. And you need a reference, something that you know should be perfectly square, like this room. So this room is going down and stretching all funny. So if I press the 3 button, I will get this particular angle, and I can select this room. Now if I press the Tab key, or if I go down here and select Edit Mode, they're the same. So Tab goes into Edit. You'll see it went to Edit there. From here, I can do what's called shearing. It's probably an option in the meshes in here somewhere, but the shortcut key for it, you ready for this, is Control Alt Shift S. Now from here, you will want to hit the axis that you want to shear on. So I'm going to start with Y shearing. So I'm going to hit the letter Y, or the key Y. So now I can go shear it upward like this. Now since I know this is supposed to be a square room, I will shear it up until everything is perfectly straight. You will see the angle on the bottom and the top, and no matter where I go, it's slightly above and below. So if you look at the bottom left corner, you can see how much it's shearing. So right now it's at 3.478, right here is 3.598, so I know it's somewhere in between. So from 3.47, I can type in, on the keypad, just type in 3.5, and that's not quite enough, so maybe I'll add a 7, and that was too much. So I can hit backspace, and how about 2? Okay, 3.52, looks absolutely perfect. My lines are straight. Hit enter and it will save it. Okay, now you will want to save this number, because you're going to reuse this, 3.52. This is your Y shear value. Okay. Now you will want to shear it on the x-axis. So Control-Alt-Shift-S. S is in Sam, by the way. And then the X to shear on the X. And now you can see it's going this way. So I can go from here, which is nothing, to negative 0.12. So it's between 0 and negative 0.12. So if I hit the negative key, I can type in 0.9. Oh, that was way too much. I meant 0.9. And a little bit more, 0.91. A little more, 5. No, 9. Nope, not quite enough. So we'll go to 0.92. 5. And that looks perfect. So 0.0925 negative. So hit enter. 0.925 negative 0.0925. So that's your X shear. So the reason we want to save this is because we're not really concerned with the wall, we're concerned with how to shear this guy. So we're going to shear him the exact same numbers. It's harder to tell when he's perfect than it is to tell when this perfect square is perfect. Okay, now you'll notice the room is pretty shallow. It's not very deep. So again, you need some kind of reference point, or you just kind of guess. But I know, or believe anyway, that this room is supposed to be just as deep as it is wide. So what I can do is go to Grease Pencil, and there is a ruler protractor. Now if I hold the control key, that's how I draw a new ruler. But also, if I hold it down, instead of just clicking it and letting it go, hold it down and drag, you'll see that it wants to snap to that line that I'm on. So I can go there and it snaps to it and tells me that that is a length of 529. Okay, but the length of, hold control, the length of this is 157.3. So I'm short. So I need this to expand by how much percent? 529 divided by 157.3 is 3.36. So I will stretch that 3.36. So we will save this. Stretch equals 3.36. Okay, so with these values in hand, I now know how to stretch my gyroid. So all that becomes useless now. I'm going to come over here and work on this guy. Escape key gets you out of the or no, it doesn't. Go back to tools maybe? What's going on? Escape. Tab. Okay. There we go. So back to this guy now. If I press tab, I will go into his edit. Now if you remember, we need to do the same manipulations from the exact same vantage point. So first let me move him, oh, not you. I will move him over this way so we can see from that particular vantage point when I press 3. So now you can see him. It doesn't look the same because I need to press 5 first. So 5 takes away the depth perception. Okay, So now you can see this is the exact same vantage point as before. So go back tab to go into edit mode, Control Alt Shift S, and then Y axis we will skew him up to 3.52, and that is perfection. And then Control Alt Shift S again, X, and negative 0.09, what was it, 25? Yes. Okay. Perfect. So now you can see we've got our little unskewed, flattened guy. So from here, we can actually scale him on just one axis. The letter S, without the Control Alt Shift, will give you your scaling. So if you hit S, and you will see that letter is green, or that arrow is green, that's the direction we want to scale it. That is the Y axis, as you can see down here. That's how I know which letter to hit. So I'll press S, and then I will press Y, and now I will be scaling on this axis only, and we know that I want to scale him at 3.36, I believe it was. Yep. Okay, so now in theory he is correct. As for the height, I'm not actually sure. He might be a little tall. Now, in this particular case, I could just make him wider rather than shrinking his height. But you can hit S, and then you saw it was blue for the up and down in the corner, so that's Z. And now I can just kind of shrink him a bit with my mouse, and we will say that that looks good. So now I've got our nice little round guy. And now for the hard part. So right now, because clipping is at a very high number, you can see through him, and you can see all those edges and vertices inside his body. For a video game, that is perfectly fine. You will never see those in the video game, and his arms can freely move as their own independent objects without distorting the rest of the guy. As for Papercraft, they're not connected, and they're in each other's way. So we need to actually connect the 2 or 3 pieces together to become one entity so that we can turn it into a Papercraft. So after much searching and hours of trying to do it bad ways and trying to do what other people told me to do, here is what I have found out. It is weird and not perfect, but I will show you. So if you press the letter A, you will unhighlight everything. Let's go back and turn our clipping to 500. So now we're not seeing through the guy anymore. It makes it a little easier to see what we're doing. We can click on Face Select, and if you right click, you will select faces, which are, full triangular units of texture or whatever you want to call it. If you hold the Shift key down, you can multi-select. You can also hold the Control key, but now you have to select with the left mouse button instead of the right mouse button. And you can draw around in a circle all the faces you want to select. So as you can see, we're going to select this guy's entire arm. Okay, and there is some inside of him as well. Just the letter Z turns everything transparent. And now from here, I can actually click through to other spots. Just make sure you're closest to the dot that's in the center of the face, and it should select the right one. Just be careful. Oh, and now you can see I'm also missing those 2 right there. Okay, so that was the letter Z. So now I've got the whole arm as one unit. So what I do is press the letter P as in peanut, and this will separate, because that makes sense. And click selection, and it now separated that selection into its own unit. So get out of edit mode and press Z again to get back to looking normal. And I've got 2 units here. So select the arm and go to the wrench over here. And you will add a Boolean modifier. From here we will select Union and use this little eyedropper over here to select what we're going to union with. And we're going to union with the big huge other object that we separated from. Okay, and then hit apply. Now you will notice that that suddenly made things disappear, and that is bad. There is a secret hidden bunch of vertices that we can't really see, and this took me again hours to figure out, and I just forgot to do it. But so we're going to select everything and hit the letter W and go to remove doubles, and that removed 34 vertices, as you can see up here at the top. Now get out of edit mode, get into this one, and do the same thing. W, remove doubles. And that, oh, I wasn't highlighting anything. W, remove doubles, and that got rid of 212. So we could have done this before separating them, and we should have. It would have been easier. But now that that's done, we can go back to this, select this arm, and again go back to the Boolean union, tell it to union with that. And all that weird blinkiness is back, but the arm is still intact. So, hit apply, and the reason it's all blinky is because there are now two copies. This one is the original with no arm, but this one is actually attached now. If you can look from the bottom, because he happens to be hollow, and I could have selected those faces earlier from the bottom, but it's now attached. But there is some weird funniness with this, which we will find out when we go into the Papercraft, but you can kind of see it right there. One of the faces is sticking out funny, and that will actually ruin your design. Okay, so now we're going to do it with the other arm real quick. This guy, we can just delete him. So we'll hit tab, and now we need to hit A to deselect, and we're still on faces, and we will select all of these guys and all of those guys, those, okay, and if we hit Z we can see really clearly if we got everything, which we did. Hit the letter P, selection, and now we have just separated that selection. Okay, so now we can do the same thing that we did before. Select just the arm. That is the right one, right? Yeah. Select just the arm, go to the wrench, add a Boolean modifier, union, eyedropper with the big thing, and we should have apply. Then we should have two copies again, and this is the bad one, so we'll delete him, and this guy is now one unit. Great. Okay, now there's a bunch of weird junk going on up here. We will just delete all that stuff. Maybe you would want to do something more with it if you're more familiar with Blender and how to use textures and stuff, but I am not. So I will just delete all the vertices. The vertices are just the dots, if that part wasn't clear. Got edges with no vertices. That's weird. So over here you can select edges instead. Okay. And oh, that's why I wasn't selecting vertices, because I was trying to get faces. Okay, so now that you have your model all pieced together, you need to look for strange artifacts, like that right there. You see how the face of edit mode, the face of this is leaking over to that. So the way you can fix that is by triangulating. Control T. and that connects the face there and basically eliminates that issue there. So if we do it to the other side, triangulate. Okay, so now any point that was touching but is not added lines to it, we will want to update that face as well with triangulation. And you're going to get a lot of extra lines now, but this will make things a lot simpler. Okay, so missed it. Okay, it's the same one on this side as well. Okay. Now, if you don't like all the lines, or they're getting in the way, or there's too many too close, whatever, because these are all basically going to be potential breakpoints of the Papercraft model. But you can merge some of the points. Now this will affect the graphics. Right now it's all perfectly aligned to look just right. But if you select the one point and shift click the other one, the one that you want to move to, you could do Alt M and say at last. Otherwise, if you want to do it at the first one, you do it at first. So that shifted that part over, and I have one fewer line. Now, as you can see, I just selected this one, but only two of the rays lit up, which means you can kind of see a black line still there and another black line there. There's actually two vertices right there. So if I click the other one, then I can do the Alt M at last, and it just kind of merged it over. And I can merge those two. Now you can see how it shifted the graphics, and I don't really like that shift. So I'm going to just leave it because it's easier than dealing with the graphics. Now if you want to deal with the graphics, I guess I'll go ahead and show you that. So we'll merge those together, say at last. Now it shifted it up funny. So what you can do is pull your screen over from here, and it duplicates it, but now we can change this one's view to be something else. So we'll choose the image editor. Okay, so now we will select a face, this one in particular, and it brings up the image that it's on. So now this is kind of oriented funny, so it's hard to tell which dot is which. But you can kind of figure it out and drag around to fix things. Like that. So that was a pretty easy one. But there are others that are more complicated. That's a bit extreme. We'll go ahead and merge those. And then fix the point. Where is it? This one? Yeah, that works. Okay. And merge those. Fix this one. That's good. Really down. Yeah, merge those two. We're doing it. Merge them up. Okay, so bring some back. There. Merge those all. So I got to change back one time. Unfortunately, multiple lines. This is good. I'll go ahead and leave the other one as it is as kind of a comparison in Papercraft. One thing we could do too is if we don't want our guy to be hollow, we could select the vertices and hit the F button, and that will fill it in. It actually looks like it filled it in with color too, so that's nice. Okay, So now we will go ahead and export this. I've already deleted everything else when I was fiddling around trying to fix it. So make sure you either delete everything, or when you export it, you check selection only, and then it would only export the current item that you have selected. So let's get out of this. Let's export the model. Been doing a lot of trial runs trying to make sure I find the simplest way to show this. Okay, now we can open Papercraft, which I've already got open from previously. Before we do that though, this image needs to be saved, which I've already done previously, but I'll go ahead and show it again here. Save as image. So the easiest way to get to it obviously is when you're editing like this, you just pick a face and then it just pops up. If you go into the UV image editor mode. Okay, so then save as image, make sure you select the PNG type down here in the bottom left corner, and then save it. I saved it to my desktop and it's already there, so I'll just go ahead and cancel that. Okay, so now for Papercraft. We open Papercraft, saved it as Gyroid 8. It says that the backs of the faces are dark gray, and we don't see any dark gray. So these are all the fronts. It just doesn't have the material, the texture, to know what it's supposed to look like right now. So we'll have to tell it. So we don't need to flip it though, because it's in the right orientation. The inside is not out. Okay, and I happen to already know that this pink side is the back, or is the front of this model, so I'm going to select pink, and then there is the bottom. Yes, so finish. Okay, so now when I add the material in the 2D, no, settings, you go into settings, texture settings, you will then specify your texture image, and on my desktop is where I have saved it, and then bam, you have your model. Okay, now if you move around like this, you can often see if there's weird issues. They'll start blinking, like little weird textures overlapping and stuff like that. But this is looking pretty good. You can't really see all those weird lines, it looks like, so maybe that was all in vain, but that gives you an idea of some of the stuff you can do. So now we will see how it really works when we unfold it. So up here, click the unfold button, and it rips it all apart. Okay. So now is the time where we figure out how we want this pieced together. Okay, so right now we've got our selector tool. If I select this giant piece that it automatically created for me, this is the entirety of the head. And that's certainly one way to do it, and maybe that's a good way. I don't know. Another way you could do it, if we go to the Divide Connect Faces tab, we can disconnect those and say maybe we prefer to do the top part of the head all as one unit. Oops. And now you can see that you would score these lines and bend it and glue that tab to that end, and you'd have the hat all as one piece and not have so many glue points. But now those are all glue points, of course, so whether that was better or worse, your guess is as good as mine. But that's where a lot of the skill comes into building the actual craft. to make it good, to make it usable for other people. So you might want to just practice even with like this model here. Practice with what works best. You know, is it best to make a big circle? Is it best to piece all the circle pieces together? I don't really know. I haven't done that many paper crafts actually, of different ways of doing it anyway. Okay, so after you decide all that, you organize it on the paper. If you need more than one sheet, it automatically just comes up. Another thing to look out for is the tabs. You can see this is a very teeny little piece. It's the bottom of his hat there. So if I select that, you can see it goes red. So there's no tabs over here, and that's because the tabs are on the other side. So we can zoom out and see. Oh, well, I guess we can stay zoomed in. This end is supposed to be gluing to that tab. Now, this tab is huge compared to that. That's not really going to work. So what you can do is in the edit flaps, you can change the position. So now the tab's on this side and it's got more room to glue to over there. Or another option is you can change the shape. We can make the tab smaller. So now it might fit. We can also set the angle to 45 degrees because that's a really sharp angle, and now it has a nicer fit to it. Doesn't look like 2 would fit though, so I'm going to change it to 1, and now that would probably fit there. Whether or not that's the best way to do it, probably not. The best way is probably to have all of the tabs on this. And then you can actually change the shape of all of them if you want. I like this 45-degree angle instead of all the triangles, and you can actually highlight a bunch at once and bam, change them all. So those are nice little tabs now to glue onto that and something over there. Oops. Go back to the grabbing. So once you've done this all up, figured out how you want to orient it all, make sure that they're not overlapping, that you don't have any weird things like that. That's just not very practical, so break that up. You can edit all flaps all at once with this to all button. So if you like a particular style, it just fixes them all automatically. And then if you want the guy to be bigger, right now he's kind of small. He fits on 1 sheet of paper really easily. Maybe you want him to be 2 sheets of paper large. If you go to the 2D menu, you can change the scale. You can scale it up 10 or down 10, or you can just change it directly. You can actually choose just how high you want him to be. So if I want this guy to be a foot tall, I can say convert 12 inches to millimeters. That's 304 millimeters. So we'll make him 304. Bam! Now he's huge. Now you're going to have to redo all your pieces to make sure that they fit on the paper properly. And not going over. If you do want like a really long straight piece, like maybe you're making a sword or something, if it does go across multiple sheets, it's not a big deal because there's always a margin on the paper which acts like a tab, so you can then just glue it all together. Okay, so that's pretty much that. Organize it, set it all up, print it out, glue it together, make sure it works, and if it works, you're done. If it doesn't work, then you got to go back to your 3D model and learn how to use Blender better than myself. So that is my quick tutorial. I hope that helps, and I hope it helps me when I decide I want to do this again in the future and don't remember how to do it. Alright,